Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Hi guys, welcome to the second episode of The Ambitious Indian. Guys, there is a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is now. And that is the same logic that applies to investing also, and that is why today we are going to speak about something very immediate for you guys, and that is how to exactly start investing. What are the steps that you need to follow, concrete steps that can help you invest. In this video, we're going to talk about how do I arrive at the right amount of money to invest at the beginning. We're going to talk about something called the 50-30-20 principle. Then we're going to talk about what is a good rate of return on an investment. How do you arrive at this decision that this is a good investment, this is not? So what are some of the things that we need to keep in mind for that? And then we're going to talk about which are the first three items that we recommend you start investing in. We're going to talk about insurance, we're going to talk about fixed deposits and public provident funds, and we're going to talk about something called mutual funds or a systematic investment plan. Let's start with how do I arrive at the right amount of money to invest. Guys, whatever income you're making at any age, after you've made allowances for taxes, because obviously taxes is something that you'll have to pay, and we'll cover taxes in a separate video, and then also removing money for your emergency fund, the remaining money should be used as follows. Now at different ages, that logic changes. The historic logic is 50-30-20. What that means is that 50% of your money, whatever you're making, should go towards your needs, 30% should go towards your wants, and 20% is the money that you should be investing and helping it grow over time. However, I understand that at different ages, the amount of money that comes in and the size of your wants and your needs are different, and hence there are different logics, different ratios that apply at different ages. For example, when you start earning, say at the age of 18, you start a part-time job along with your studies and you're making say 20-30,000 rupees a month, then only the 80-20 principle applies. That means that 80% of your money, which will not be a lot, will have to go into your needs. So looking after your food, your clothing, your shelter, your internet, whatever your fundamental needs are. And only 20% which is left will then go into what is it that you want. So it could be a mobile phone you always coveted, or that pair of clothing that you wanted, or that course you wanted to take, those kinds of things. As you move along, it becomes 70-30. Now you can spend a little bit more on your wants compared to your needs. But by the time you're 22 years old, you should definitely start investing, and this is where the 60-10-30 principle comes in. Say you're making 70,000, 60,000 in your first job at the age of 22, 60% of your money should go into handling your needs, 10% for your wants, and 30% has to be shifted into making investments. This is when you start making your first investments, and we're going to talk about where is it that money needs to go. As you go along, that principle changes over time. It changes to 50-20-30, 50-30-20, 30-50-20, and 10-40-50, depending on what age group you belong to. And we will cover all these, but for you, the most significant stage right now is the 60-10-30 stage, and how is it that you can start investing. Guys, there are so many investing tools and opportunities all across the world today. It becomes difficult sometimes to evaluate what is a good investment, what isn't. For example, there are savings accounts where people say that I've kept the money in my bank and I'm making interest. And they're making 4% interest, 5% interest. But they are actually losing money when they're making just 4%, 5% interest. The reason for that? The reason is inflation. What used to cost you $100, say last year, costs you about 108, 110 bucks this year. So if you have earned interest on your 100 rupees last year in the bank of 4%, your money is only worth 104 rupees, whereas the item that you could have bought is now worth 108 rupees. So you've actually lost money by keeping it in the bank. And of course, you have to have the filter that we talked about in the last session as well, which is of financial goals. What is it that you want to achieve? If in 5 years you want to achieve, say, a kitty of 5 crores, an investment in fixed deposits is not going to be enough. You're going to have to go into equity markets. You're going to have to look at markets which have a higher return but a higher risk. So that's a call you'll have to take. Now, these are the two things that you keep in mind when you're deciding what is a good rate of investment, what is a good investment to start with. However, in a more tangible way, let's talk about 3 investments that we feel any student should take up as soon as they have money. The first is insurance. We're going to talk about what and why of insurance. We're going to talk about what is human lifetime value, how do premiums get calculated, and why you should start insurance early. So let's start with insurance. Guys, every asset has an intrinsic economic value. Say you bought a car. Now the car, if it is being used for your business, has an economic value that is going to save you transport costs for X number of years, right? Now if that car gets stolen, or if it meets with an accident and gets damaged, or it's for whatever reason not being able to use afterwards, then the hope that you had, the economic value that you were hoping to derive from that car, has been truncated without notice. And an insurance gives you cover against that. And insurance not just gives you cover against assets, inanimate assets like cars and homes and offices and all kinds of things. It also gives you cover against something very fundamental, which is human life. And that is why an insurance is important. In India, life insurance is the biggest form of insurance. Everybody is recommended to take that, but not enough people even take it today. So let's talk a little bit about life insurance and why it's important to take it up early. So in the case of life insurance, the insured, the person who's in whose name the insurance has been taken, and the receiver of the final claim are two different persons, because it gets accrued only when someone has passed away. So you pay premiums on the basis of a value that has been assigned to your insurance, and you keep paying premiums for that. And supposing if and when something happens to you and you pass away, or you're no longer alive, that's when that promised insurance value is given to the claimer. The fees payable to an insurance company, which is called the premium, is either in the form of lump sum or periodic installments. Now guys, the expense of paying life insurance premium is sizable, and hence one should be very careful in choosing the exact amount of insurance he should take. If you take too little, then your family does not get enough cover when you pass away. If you take it too high, then you will struggle to pay premiums for it regularly. So the life insurance amount should be enough to take care of all the stages of your dependent's life before he becomes self-reliant. So when you're calculating for your parents, you should look at their daily expenses. You should look at their medical bills as they grow older. What are the kind of diseases they have you expect to grow further in the future, and look at that value and then figure out. There is a ballpark rule that will help you arrive at what amount of insurance you need to take, which is called the human life value. Now the human life factor depends on a person's age. A thumb rule is right here, which you can check out. But essentially, I'll give you an example. Say there is a guy named Akshay who's 28 years old and his annual income is 10 lakh rupees. He should take out an insurance policy of up to 1.5 crores. Because the insurance cover that is recommended is equal to your annual income into the human life value multiplier that you see here. So life insurance is a serious matter, and many options are today available to suit your specific needs. They provide a wide variety of benefits such as critical illness, waiver of premium, disability benefit, personal accident cover. It's like a plan B for whatever you have planned for your career and your family. This is your plan B. Now there are other types of insurances as well. There is health insurance, which is self-explanatory. There is asset insurance, which is on your home, your car, your factory, your fridge, furniture, mobile phone, anything, right? Even cash lying in your house can be insured, for example. There's also liability insurance. So say you're traveling and you misplace your baggage, right? And it creates a major liability for you. Or someone steals your credit card, okay? And again, you makes major purchases from it. These liabilities can also be insured, and the resultant losses can be mitigated if you're careful. So insurance is something which is fundamental, and you should invest in it right away. In fact, insurance is not even an investment product in that sense. It's a product to keep your future safe, your family's future safe. Let's move to the next one, which is considered the old daddy of investments. This investment has been around for years, but it is something that the government has instituted to push this habit of savings, this habit of being conservative with our money into the entire population's minds. Now there are two aspects to it. One is the fixed deposit, which is instituted by banks, and the second is the public provident fund, which is instituted by the government through India Post and even through public banks like SBI, and even through partnership with banks like ICICI. Right? Now what is the eligibility for this? If you are a resident of India, you can take both fixed deposits and public provident funds, and that won't be a problem. Time period is massive. So in the case of a fixed deposit, you can take it out for 7 days to 20 years. In the case of public provident fund, it's usually for 15 years, and then you can extend it by a block of 1 or 5 years depending on what the situation is. The deposit amount minimum is about 100 rupees, 500 rupees, in that area. So even with a small amount you can start. Guys, one of the things to evaluate when you are looking at an investment is what is the liquidity. It means that how easily can you withdraw money whenever you need it. Now, in the case of fixed deposit, the liquidity is moderate. That's because there are premature withdrawals allowed in certain types of fixed deposits, and some they aren't. So you can look at which scheme works for you and you can take it. In the case of public provident fund, it's for the long term. So it has very low liquidity. Premature withdrawals are very rare, and they're only allowed every year from the 7th financial year after you've invested. So once you've started investing, you have to wait for that money to grow and let it park over there and grow over time. Now, what are the interests that look like? Depending on the choice of the bank that you do it with, it can go up to 9% in the case of fixed deposits and up to 8% in the case of public provident funds. Again, very good rates. These are rates which are very good when you are looking at a low risk investment instrument. Any money that you have that you can park for the long term, that can help you achieve your long term goals, should be parked in these kinds of instruments. One of the things that the government does, and we'll talk in detail about it in our next episode, but just wanted to point out that the government encourages these investments by giving you a lot of tax savings, tax rebates when you invest in these instruments, both fixed deposits and public provident funds, and we'll talk about that in our next episode. But that is a valid benefit for investing and starting off with fixed deposits and public provident funds the moment you start making money. Now let's talk about the most interesting bit, and which is mutual funds and investing in them through SIPs. Now, what are mutual funds? I'm assuming here that you know how equity markets work, and for those who don't, we will do a separate episode on equity markets as well. However, not everybody can invest in equity markets, especially if you don't have a lot of money. Now, if you have only 2000 rupees to invest, you will only be able to invest in one stock. But you want to be able to balance your risk. You want to invest a little bit in this, a little bit in that, so that even if one stock grows, it can handle the loss you may have made in some other stocks. Which is where the concept of a mutual fund comes in. What does a mutual fund do? A mutual fund takes money, small money from a variety of people, pools it together, and then invests in variety of stocks. So supposing you have 2000 rupees, while in the case of directly investing in the equity market, it directly goes into one particular stock. In the case of doing it in a mutual fund, that 2000 rupees can actually be broken down. You can have 400 rupees invested in a particular stock, say in Reliance. You can have another 400 in Tata. You can have another 400 somewhere else. So you can have 5 different blocks of 400 invested in different instruments into different equity shares, even though each of the equity shares per equity share value might be more than 400 rupees. That's because your investments have been pooled together with a lot of people like you. So say there are 20 people who have pooled in 2000 rupees each. So then the fund manager has 40,000 rupees to play with. So he can invest some in each of them, and then once he makes some benefit out of it, it is distributed equally to everybody. So this is a great way to invest. However, again, the problem here is that how do you invest in mutual funds regularly? And that is why they have something called a systematic investment plan. In this particular case, every month you can instruct your bank, you can instruct your mutual fund to withdraw X amount of money from your bank account to invest in the markets. This means that every month you will be making an investment in mutual funds. So it's a regular, systematic way of investing. This will ensure that you put into practice a habit to invest regularly, and that your money keeps growing every month. Now, there are different types of mutual funds, and we'll cover them in detail in our mutual funds episode, but there are diversified equity funds, index funds, opportunity funds. Depending on what the objective of that fund is and what part of the market is going to focus on, there can be a variety of funds. So you'll have to pick that depending on what your financial goals are, what is your risk appetite. Now let's talk a little bit about what an SIP is. For someone who wishes to build up capital over the long term and is not familiar with the equity markets, investing largely through an SIP in a mutual fund is one strategy that can ensure success to a large extent. What it really means is that you invest a fixed sum from your savings every month instead of making one heavy time investment. Over the years, an SIP can add up to give really substantial returns. For example, a monthly SIP of 1000 at the rate of 9% would grow to 6.69 lakhs in 10 years, 17.83 lakhs in 30 years, and 44.2 lakhs in 40 years. The true benefit of SIP is reaped by investing in lower levels. How do you select a mutual fund? Today, many websites and magazines offer performance statistics, fund fact sheets, quarterly news, etc. on all mutual funds in the market. This knowledge should be used to understand which fund matches your risk appetite. While evaluating the funds, also look for consistency in delivering their stated objectives in their past performance. Like one would diversify their equity investments, one should also diversify mutual fund investments so that as your money grows, so as to spread the risk further. Fund charges are also substantial, so consider them also while choosing a fund. Now, investing and follow up is very important, as we spoke about in the last video as well. Simply making the investment isn't enough. You have to constantly follow up what is the performance of the fund. You will get a very thorough review once every quarter, but you can monitor it every month in terms of how your fund is doing and what kind of returns is it giving. That's it for now, guys. I'm going to summarize this before I go. What we have answered in this video is what are the first steps to begin investing. First, we discussed how do I arrive at the amount of money that I can invest, and we talked about the 50-30 principle and how it applies differently at different ages. Then we talked about what is a good rate of return on investment. So we talked about the fact that it should beat inflation, should meet financial goals, and it should align with your risk appetite. Then we talked about which are the first items I should be investing in, where we talked about insurance, where we talked about what it is, why is it taken, why should we take it early, and what is the meaning of human life value, and how do you calculate premium. Then we talked about this discussion between fixed deposits and public provident funds. We talked about how the government institutes the habit of savings. We talked about how it is a low risk investment, it's backed by the top banks and governments, and the interest earnings are periodical. Finally, we talked about SIPs, what are the meaning of mutual funds, how to start investing periodically in SIPs, and what are the things to keep in mind so that you monitor that mutual fund investment. That's it for now, guys. In the next video, we'll go into talk about something that is very prominent in our lives, which is called taxes. And you've only just started paying taxes, so you sometimes don't even know why is it that you're paying them, how do you pay them, is there a way to save them, is there a way to capitalize on them. And we're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about how to pay taxes, how to save taxes, and how to capitalize on the taxes that you're paying. So hang around, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Ambitious Indian. Thank you so much.